Hey everybody! Today we're diving into the ever so slightly dull but surprisingly important world of US-Mexico relations. It's a topic that might not grab headlines every day, but it affects millions of lives on both sides of the border. Now these two countries, they're like that couple, constantly bickering, but somehow they always seem to stay together. Their relationship is a mix of cooperation and conflict, a delicate balance that has been maintained for decades. Why? Well, because they need each other. The economies of the US and Mexico are deeply intertwined, with trade and labor flowing freely across the border. This partnership is crucial for both nations. Mexico is a major trading partner, and let's be honest, we Americans do enjoy a good taco or two. But it's not just about food, it's about the exchange of goods, services, and culture that enriches both countries. But lately, things have been, how shall we say, a tad tense. Political disagreements and economic policies have created friction, leading to a series of disputes that have strained this vital partnership. We're talking tariffs, threats, and enough political posturing to make your head spin. The stakes are high, and the consequences of these actions are felt by businesses and consumers alike. It's like watching a really slow-motion car crash, except with more sombreros and significantly less mangled metal. The drama unfolds slowly, but the impact is real and significant. However, just when you thought things couldn't get any weirder, they did. Unexpected developments and sudden announcements have kept everyone on their toes, wondering what will happen next. The US and Mexico reached an agreement, a truce of sorts, in their ongoing trade war. This agreement is a step towards stabilizing the relationship, but it's not a permanent solution. But like any good truce, it comes with conditions. Both sides have made concessions, and the future of this partnership will depend on how well these terms are upheld. The road ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the US and Mexico will continue to navigate this complex relationship, for better or worse. So, what did Mexico agree to? Well, in a nutshell, they're ramping up security on their southern border. We're talking about deploying 10,000 members of their National Guard, which is basically like their version of a militarized police force. Now, the official line is that these troops will be cracking down on drug trafficking, particularly fentanyl, which, let's be honest, is a huge problem. But let's not kid ourselves, folks. This is also about stemming the flow of migrants heading north. The US has been putting immense pressure on Mexico to do more to stop migration, and this deployment is a pretty clear concession. Now, this agreement isn't just a one-way street. The US also made some promises, kind of like when you promise your significant other you'll do the dishes for a week if they agree to watch that terrible reality show with you. In this case, the US has pledged to work with Mexico to prevent the trafficking of high-powered weapons into Mexico. This is a big deal because, as we all know, guns don't just magically appear south of the border. They're smuggled there, often fueling the very violence that drives people to flee in the first place. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline and then acting surprised when it gets bigger. So, yeah, addressing the flow of arms is pretty crucial. A timeout, the tariff truce and upcoming negotiations. So with the troops deployed and the promises made, the US has agreed to hit the pause button on those pesky tariffs it was threatening to impose on Mexican goods. It's a temporary reprieve, a one-month timeout for both sides to try and hammer out a more permanent deal. Think of it like a couple going to therapy. They're still sleeping in separate rooms, but at least they're talking, right? During this one-month period, high-level representatives from both countries will be locked in a room, hopefully with plenty of coffee and aspirin, trying to negotiate a more comprehensive agreement. This includes some bigwigs like the US Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, and Secretary of Commerce. The negotiators, key players, and their roles. Now, no high-stakes negotiation would be complete without a cast of colorful characters, and folks, this one doesn't disappoint. We've got presidents, diplomats, and even the occasional tech billionaire thrown in for good measure. On the US side, you've got the big guy himself, President Trump, known for his, shall we say, unconventional negotiating style. Then there's the Mexican president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who's got his own brand of political savvy. And of course, let's not forget the supporting cast, those tireless diplomats and advisors working behind the scenes to try and prevent a full-blown trade war. It's like a political thriller, except with more PowerPoint presentations and fewer explosions. A history of tensions past tariff disputes. Now, to understand why this whole tariff thing is such a big deal, we need to take a little trip down memory lane. The relationship between the United States and Mexico has always been a complex one, especially when it comes to trade. You see, the US and Mexico, they have a bit of a history when it comes to trade disputes. Over the years, there have been numerous instances where both countries have found themselves at odds over various trade issues. It's like that one couple who's always arguing about whose turn it is to take out the trash. Except instead of trash, it's billions of dollars worth of goods. These disputes have often led to heated negotiations, and at times, even retaliatory measures. There have been disagreements over everything from avocados to automobiles. For instance, the US has often raised concerns about the quality and safety standards of Mexican agricultural products, while Mexico has criticized US policies that they believe unfairly target their industries. Remember that time the US slapped tariffs on Mexican steel and aluminum? Yeah, good times. That move was met with swift retaliation from Mexico, which imposed its own tariffs on a range of US goods including pork, apples, and cheese. And let's not forget NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which has been a political football for decades. NAFTA was designed to eliminate trade barriers between the US, Mexico, and Canada, but it has been a source of controversy since its inception. So, yeah, this latest tariff spat is really just the latest chapter in a long and complicated story. The history of trade disputes between the US and Mexico is a testament to the challenges and complexities of international trade relationships. As both nations continue to navigate these waters, it remains to be seen how future negotiations will unfold. Looking ahead, potential impacts and future relations. So what does the future hold for the US and Mexico? It's a question that has been asked countless times, and the answer is never straightforward. Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The relationship between these two nations has always been complex, filled with both opportunities and challenges. This new agreement, if it holds, could be a step towards a more stable and productive relationship. It could pave the way for increased economic cooperation and mutual growth. Or, it could all fall apart, sending us spiraling back into a trade war that benefits no one. The stakes are incredibly high, and the consequences of failure could be severe. It all depends on whether both sides are willing to negotiate in good faith and find common ground. Trust and transparency will be key factors in determining the success of this agreement. Because at the end of the day, the US and Mexico are stuck with each other. Their geographical proximity means that their destinies are intertwined, whether they like it or not. Their neighbors, their trading partners, and their economies are deeply intertwined. The flow of goods, services, and people across the border is a testament to their interdependence. So let's hope they can figure out a way to get along, for the sake of both nations. A harmonious relationship could lead to unprecedented levels of prosperity and innovation. Because the alternative is about as appealing as a tequila hangover after a night of binge-watching trade negotiations. No one wants to wake up to that kind of headache. And trust me folks, that's not a pretty sight. The future of US-Mexico relations is in the hands of those who can see beyond the immediate challenges and work towards a shared vision of success.